and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. It is Tuesday evening, the 12th of February, 2019, and tonight's topic is whatever happened to Bakkt, Bitcoin ETFs, Bitcoin trading platforms, Bitcoin cryptocurrency ATMs, and the Lightning Network. We'll do an update on that. But first, and we're also going to take a look at some of the news and the gold and silver prices. So let's get right into the gold and silver prices for the day. It was a big day in the market today, in the equity markets. I guess just because they always come up with some reason to tell you why the stock markets went up, but it's always optimism on something getting done, whether it's a Chinese deal or keeping the government open. I think that was what was dominating the news today. The gold price, though, as a result of the very robust markets, the Dow Jones was up 1.5%, up 372 points to 25,425. I believe that's a high for the year. I think all of the equity markets hit highs for the year. NASDAQ up 106 points. That was also up 1.5% to 7414. S&P 500, a bit of a laggard, up 1.25%, up 34.93 points to 2744. Dollar index still relatively strong at 96.71. Gold price down $5, $6, down less than 0.5%. Still holding above 1,300. Did get as low as 1,303. Rebounded nicely. Currently at 1,310. Silver. Down. Same thing with silver. When gold goes down, silver generally goes down a bit more. And that's what happened today. Down 12 cents, down to 15.69. That's where it is also in the aftermarket. Down, about 0.75 percentage point. What does that do? The unsustainable gold-silver ratio, the one that's supposed to be 16 to 1, 9 to 1, 15 to 1. If you're not paying attention and you just believe what somebody tells you, that somehow that's supposed to be there. We go through this a lot, and it's worth repeating. Gold and silver used to track at a 16 to 1 or 15 to 1 ratio, mostly because, not just because of the relative rarity between the two, but because they were both used and pegged as money, as monetary assets. They now have entirely different profiles. Gold has some monetary aspects. Silver has basically none. Silver has a very small percentage of its demand for investments. The bulk of silver demand is industrial, and then silverware and jewelry, whereas gold's number one demand is jewelry. Second largest, however, is investment demand, which includes private investment and central bank investment. And gold's industrial demand is only about 10% of its overall demand. That is why you're not seeing a lower gold-silver ratio. And the gold-silver ratio, if it does indeed go lower, and the times that it has gone lower since we've been off gold and silver standards, has been when there have been monetary crises and the gold price rises. And then because silver has a monetary component that's dormant, people do start to push into silver, and that drives silver up faster than gold, mainly because there's less silver in terms of dollar amounts, and it doesn't take much to move silver. But absent any type of monetary demand for silver, or investment demand is probably the better terms, because if people buy silver as a result of some type of monetary crisis, they're not buying it so they can trade it. They're buying it so they can hold on to it and then maybe sell it as the financial crisis ends. But anyway, the gold-silver ratio now at 83.41. And it's interesting to see the same people, they just repeat themselves. Gold-silver ratio unsustainable, saying it for 10 years and maybe not analyzing why. I mean, it's okay to come up with a prediction and to understand, make projections, but if your predictions and projections turn out to be entirely incorrect for 10 years, it is time to start wondering what you did wrong in your analysis, rather than just repeat yourself, insist that you were right, and eventually the markets will figure out why you're a genius. It doesn't work that way. All right, let's leave the gold-silver ratio for now, and let's talk about some other gold news. And what else happened? There was a story today, maybe it didn't get put in, I'm sure it did, about, oh, I know why. I just showed you the wrong gold and silver charts, but they're pretty much the same. Here they are. Gold versus other currencies. That's what I wanted to show you. Gold surge has been disguised by a strong dollar, and that's a very good point. You have to measure gold on the basis of the currency. We've done this before. We did it at the beginning of the year, showing how gold outperformed nearly all currencies, not just last year, but basically for the last 10, 15 years, and generally has outperformed the dollar. It's just that the dollar happens to be one of the strongest currencies, the strongest fiat currency, and that's why you see this gold not performing well against the dollar. I'm sorry, I gave you the February 11th gold prices. There was a little bit of a difference. Gold did go up $2 today, $3 today, up 0.22%. So it's still at 1310, as I had mentioned. Currently, silver, let's just get a quick look there. Same thing. Silver was flat, so there was really no change. It's still at 1569. And the gold-silver ratio, essentially same thing. Although because gold went up a little bit today, your gold-silver ratio went up too. So there it is, 83.60. So same commentary for the last 2 days in gold and silver. Not much movement in either of them, and not much movement in the ratio, but big movements in the equity markets. Glad I caught that one. All right. Now let's move on to other news. Some very interesting news, and this, I'd like to get some opinions on what's going to happen. Word is leaking out, and this is incredible to people who believe and are convinced that Donald Trump is going to get frog-marched out of the White House for being Putin's puppet and a traitor. But it looks like not only are they thinking that the Mueller probe won't find anything, but they're not even going to issue a report, and that this issue is just going to kind of die away. And I think if there is nothing to report, I think that's probably strategically the best thing the Mueller camp can do, because otherwise it's embarrassing to issue a point-by-point report saying we looked here, we looked here, we looked here, didn't find anything, didn't find anything there, didn't find anything there. If that's the case, then this is something I predicted a couple years ago, that it was a big mistake to put all your eggs in that basket, because if your entire political capital is spent on trying to convince the public that Donald Trump is a Russian plant and colluded with Russia, and that's the only reason he got elected, if it turns out that it fails, then you spend 2 years not defining your own agenda. And I think it's very important for the Democrats to define themselves who they are, not who they are against. And if the reason you're against Donald Trump is because he's a Russian colluder, and you don't have that, and that's what you spent most of your time complaining about, well, now you have to quickly redefine yourself, and you don't have much time left, because there's a lot of Democratic candidates now running for the nomination in 2020. In a year from now, they'll kick off the New Hampshire and Iowa primaries, so they have to start to reevaluate what they're going to do. And I don't think that this green, whatever you call it, plan is going to be what's going to win over. It might win over some Democrats, but it's probably not going to win over the general population. Now, also what came out, and this isn't good news either for the Democrats, is the Senate committee. Now, this isn't just the Republicans. This is, I think there's 8 Republicans and 7 Democrats on this committee. They said that there was no direct proof of conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia. And again, people who believe that there is, they keep thinking that, oh, well, that's just the Republicans and Mueller's got the goods. And the only reason they believe that is because they want to believe it and they've been told to believe it. But there's never been any evidence that there has been collusion, other than you can't disprove that the Steele dossier hasn't been verified. Now, that's the same thing when people get all riled up when they start talking about gold or silver. You can't prove there isn't a gold-backed yuan. You can't prove that JP Morgan doesn't have 600 billion tons of gold. That is not once you start making those claims, you're essentially admitting you're hoping for what you believe in it to be true, because someone else can't disprove it, or someone else can't show you evidence that it's not true. And that's not how things work. All right, what else is happening? Speaking of 2020, I don't know if this guy's got a shot, but de Blasio wants to run too. He's the mayor of New York. We haven't heard from Andrew Cuomo, who's the governor of New York. I think he might want to run. You have Kirsten Gillibrand, senator from New York. She's already announced she's running. You got Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota. She says she sells seashores by the seashore, is running. Elizabeth Warren, Democratic senator from Massachusetts, is running. Cory Booker is running, senator from New Jersey. Kamala Harris, Democrat senator from California, is running. Julio Castro, I think congressman from Texas, is running. All announced. So there's a lot of them running, and you may yet get the guy Bloomberg may run. You may also get the guy Starbucks Schultz run as an independent. Beto O'Rourke, who's tonight's subject of Moronica, he'll probably run. He is, I don't know what he is. He lost to Ted Cruz as senator. I guess he's some sort of a congressman still. Right, let's move on from that realm, and let's do... we got a moron here.
Presenting the distinguished international news commentator and foreign correspondent,
Smaulgld. This has been an extraordinary week in world affairs.
I told Hillary Clinton that that's moronic.
Now, this one is, this is really moronic. So Donald Trump goes down to the border of El Paso, where there happens to be some type of wall, fence, or barrier. And he's trying to convince people that this is what you need because El Paso is now a great, safe place. You go across the wall into El Juarez and it's dangerous. And ergo, there you go, proof walls work. Well, not to be outdone and not to lose in the propaganda wars about a wall, Beto O'Rourke, I suppose, was chosen as the one to go out and counter Donald Trump. Now, Beto O'Rourke doesn't have the same pulling power to grab a crowd, but yet I think he drew 5,000 or 6,000. But I think Trump had like 20 or 30,000 if you count the people inside and outside. But forget the battling of crowds. Well, that's inevitable, and whoever has the best screenshots is going to look like they won that battle. But I think the battle is lost when, forget how many people Beto O'Rourke had, when you show him talking to people through a fence. Now, this is moronic. I don't know who is his advance guy. He's trying to portray the fact that fences are immoral, fences are bad, okay, that fences just don't work, and we're better than that, and this isn't who we are as a country, all the platitudes about the open society. And you've got these film clips of him, people hanging on to fences, talking through the fence to him. Taking the time to talk to people. It should say through a fence. And then his speech, I mean, anyone who's listening to him, what does he say? Well, here's what he says. Walls do not save lives, walls end lives. I don't know what to say about that. All right, let's move on now. By the way, I love going to the Smaulgld mailbox because sometimes I get nice gifts. And here's one recent gift. Speaking of Mexico, I got fiat y más fiat. Someone sent me worthless paper money. Two $2 bills, a one US dollar bill. That totals $5. And that was wonderful. But I also got 10 pesos, Cinco de Mayo pesos. And there they are, coming into the Smaulgld mailbox. And if you want to send any items of value that you're allowed to send through the mail, you can do so at Smaulgld. Checks, precious metals, worthless fiat currency, Smaulgld LLC, P.O. Box 714, Dover, New Hampshire, 03820. Also, you can become one of the 19 or 20 Smaulgld patrons that we have at patreon.com/Smaulgld, or you can do a one-time donation to Smaulgld via PayPal, paypal.me/Smaulgld, or you can donate via Bitcoin or Litecoin at those QR codes. All of this information is also on the Smaulgld website. It's also below in the notes in this BitChute and this YouTube. And you can also go over to Smaulgld.com and order yourself Smaulgld Classic and Super Classic mugs that you see there. I ship those out directly myself. The other mugs get shipped out by the Smaulgld store, and you can also order those at smaulgld.com. Check out the links. And if you're interested in purchasing precious metals, it's not investment advice that you do so. You can do so through the Smaulgld links, affiliate links below this BitChute and below this YouTube. That helps the site out as well. I get paid a small commission per sale, and you pay no more, no less than if you visited those sites directly. And you can click on links from SD Bullion, Money Metals Exchange, and Golden Eagle Coin. And you pay no more or less, as I said. And if you visited those sites directly, Smaulgld gets a small commission. And we have at Golden Eagle Coin, you have the Litecoin and the Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies in not sterling silver, in 9995 silver. Very nice looking coins. SD Bullion always has some great specials. Money Metals Exchange as well, so you can go there, compare pricing and shipping, and do your shopping. So thank you very much for those who are indeed purchasing your precious metals through the Smaulgld links, which does highlight you don't have to pump and make up stories about precious metals. I get people on the comments begging me to say something really positive about precious metals. I don't have to. Precious metals are precious metals. I don't have to promote that they're money, period, that the COMEX is going to collapse, that JP Morgan has 6 trillion pounds of silver, whatever it is. I don't have to do that. You guys know what gold and silver are, and it's got nothing to do with these fantastical stories, gold back yuan and game changers and dollar collapse. Yeah, okay, EMP, all those things. Okay, if that's why you're buying, then go ahead and buy that for that reason. But if you're buying for more sensible reasons, you know where you can do it. All right, let's move on now to the crypto stories. That's the title. Now, one of the questions is, what's going on with this Bakkt company? Because Bakkt is this consortium between, and this is supposedly like the holy grail, this big deal to get institutional investors involved, and it's Bitcoin to start, and it's supposed to be a platform where people can trade Bitcoin, trade futures Bitcoin, get them physically delivered, stored in the proper regulatory way that institutional investors are used to, and then also to create ways for the people who get the cryptocurrencies or the Bitcoin to be able to convert it into fiat so that they can spend it. And that's why Microsoft, Starbucks, Boston Consulting, and the New York Stock Exchange parents, ICE, are involved, Intercontinental Exchange, are involved in this project. And this project was supposed to launch in December, then it was supposed to launch in January, then the government shutdown came, it still hasn't been launched, but yet they've raised another like $200 million, and it looks like they're doing acquisitions with some of the money. It looks like the launch is going to be bigger when they finally do get it out there, and we're going to see that a police pension fund invested through another fund indirectly to invest in Bakkt, to invest in Coinbase. We'll get to that in a second. But here's Bakkt talking about closing another transaction with a group called Rosenthal Collins Group, and that one's going to be for their institutional infrastructure. Now, the head of the New York Stock Exchange, I think who this woman is, yeah, she works at the New York Stock Exchange, and she talks about this acquisition being about consumers and the infrastructure needed to support the use of digital assets. That's so that they can spend them at places like Starbucks. So this is going to happen, just a matter of when. They've got all the investment in there. They've got the New York Stock Exchange behind it, Microsoft, Starbucks, Boston Consulting. People think this is a game changer. I don't know if it's a game changer, but it is a new on-ramp to bring in institutional money, and it's not an ETF. And today there was also news that this company, Morgan Creek, I guess they got business from 2 police pension funds. They put $40 million into the Morgan Creek Blockchain Venture Capital Fund, who in turn are now investing in companies like Coinbase and Bakkt and a few others. And they say eventually the charter allows them to invest directly into cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, and so on. So that's the Bakkt update. We don't have a date yet on when that's going to happen, but that's a fairly significant thing when it does happen. There's another company out there called Abra. What Abra is somewhat of a hybrid between Robinhood, Square. It's a way of buying cryptocurrencies through the app. You get to hold the private keys. And now is extended into allowing you to buy with your Bitcoin as collateral stocks for as little as $5. The interesting thing here is, and I think Max Kaiser made a very interesting point, this one's worth listening to, is a lot of people are talking, as I have been, that the key to a lot of Bitcoin is the payments. That's the real use case, is that the payments, if once you get them up and scalable, that you can spend Bitcoin and pay lower fees. The merchants pay far lower fees using Bitcoin. You're not subject to the SWIFT network for large institutions or large governments. And then also at the lower level, you can make microtransactions and not have the heavy MasterCard, Visa style fees. And so in that way, a lot of people are talking about how that gives Bitcoin a use case and therefore why it will be adopted. And then, of course, if you throw it into, you make it easier to invest through Bakkt and then to spend, you get that's where the hype is. But what this Abra thing does, and Max is saying that maybe one of the big new uses for Bitcoin will be as a basis, as a unit of account, as collateral for trading other assets. So very interesting indeed. And that would also, I know they also use Litecoin as an underlying asset at Abra. And then, you get to the point where, well, if all the Bitcoin is loaded into ETFs or is being used to collateralize other trades, then what are you going to transact in? And then that's, I guess, the use case for Litecoin. So a lot of people, Bitcoin maximalists, say, Bitcoin is everything. But I think at some point there may be need for at least another few cryptocurrencies. All right, ATMs. We talk about this. Just a quick update here. Here's a story here. New Yorkers now able to buy Bitcoin using traditional ATMs. Now, there's three things going on here. There are Bitcoin ATMs, which are just cryptocurrency machines. There's probably about 10 major manufacturers of these machines, and they are strictly cryptocurrency ATMs. You stick your cash in there, and you get Bitcoin, and basically all of them sell Bitcoin. The next most available coin is Litecoin. About 66% of the machines offer that, then Ethereum, then it falls off after that. But those are machines specifically dedicated to selling Bitcoin, Litecoin, and the like. And in some of them, they allow you also to redeem your Bitcoin for cash. The latest inventions have been Coinstar has joined up with another manufacturer of a machine, CoinMe, and they now allow at those places, those Coinstar machines, there's 20,000 of them, at about half of them, a little less than half, for you to also buy Bitcoin at those machines as well. So they're not new Bitcoin ATMs. They're leveraging the existing structure of the Coinstar machines. And now there's also a way in New York where there's ability to convert regular ATMs and so that you can also buy Bitcoin at those as well. And that's now available in New York. And Bitcoin ATMs, not the Coinstar and not this other hybrid ATMs, they are now at 4,337 worldwide, of which 2,613 are in the U.S. That's wrong. That's what is it? It's Bitcoin 4,337. Oh, no, I don't know what I wrote there. Anyway, the Litecoin ATMs are 2,860. Yes, that is correct. There's 4,337 worldwide Bitcoin ATMs, of which 2,613 are in the United States. But globally, Litecoin, out of the 4,337 worldwide, is available on 2,863, or about 66% of the worldwide ATMs carry Litecoin. All right, what else do we got? Now, Bitcoin ETF. This is another supposedly big game changer. And there's about a dozen or so out there. And they think that the one that is most likely to get approved is the Van Eck one. And the big issues they're talking about that they're still hung up on are custodial arrangements. I think that one has been solved. There's a lot of money that's been put into it. And then the other one is whether the SEC will have some type of surveillance agreements allowing them to look into how the markets are transacting, whether there's any type of manipulation. Now, this guy, Rick Edelman, is a big fund manager. He says that the Bitcoin ETF is virtually certain. And he was aware of those two issues, the storage and the manipulation issues. But he also mentioned, or if he didn't mention this, the Van Eck people have been mentioning that they're using now best-of-breed market surveillance sharing agreements with OTC markets, using NASDAQ, using, I think it's, NASDAQ surveillance capabilities. And that's exactly what the SEC likes to see. But the other thing he mentioned is that the SEC was concerned, at least with respect to the Gemini Winklevoss twins ETF that got rejected a couple years ago, that the bulk of the trading was happening in unregulated exchanges in China. Now, that's no longer the case because there are no regulated or unregulated exchanges in China anymore, and the trading has now shifted away from China, but it's not all in the United States. But Edelman made the point that that's no different than the gold or oils markets, which are not necessarily very transparent, but at least to the extent that there is trading in the U.S., and that would be on Bakkt, and that would be on Coinbase and the Winklevoss Gemini Exchange and Poloniex and others that are subject to U.S. regulation, and will have, and there's also OTC exchanges in the U.S. that are subject to surveillance agreements, then it looks like the SEC should be comfortable with that, and this is why this guy, Rick Edelman, thinks it's going to be inevitable. Now, we did see another guy come out the other day, SEC new Commissioner Jackson. He says he's in favor of it. And then remember Hester Prynne, or actually Hester Pierce. She's the one who dissented last time. They rejected the Van Eck Bitcoin ETF. And she's very much in favor of the ETF. And she actually tweeted out to Commissioner Jackson, looking forward to working with you. So that looks like that's probably going to happen as well. Now, here's one that may sneak under the radar and get there first. It's very clever here. A new proposed ETF was filed, which would mix Bitcoin futures with sovereign debt. So the ETF would not be strictly a Bitcoin ETF, but it would lump together Euro bonds and Swiss bonds and Bank of Japan's bonds. I don't know what other bonds they're going to have in there, and also have a little exposure to Bitcoin. So the way they would do it is they just do the traditional ETF filing. They would have the components with how they, I'm sure there's bond ETFs, and they would probably get clearance on that. And they'd say, and maybe 5-10%, I haven't read the prospectus, which is probably a small amount, is Bitcoin, and that may pave the way to get in there first. And we'll see how that one comes about. But that's, again, the reason I'm mentioning all these things is because most people only pay attention to Bitcoin, Litecoin, or whatever it is when the price is going higher. And that's a mistake, because the price generally, the price goes up when the price goes up. It's keeping track of what's going on, which is more important than just looking at the price. Speaking of the price, we haven't given you the prices yet for today. We're going to do that right now. Bitcoin up 0.5% to 3,594. Bcash managed to get up 2% today, $121. Ethereum tracking Bcash at 121 as well. That's also up 2%. Litecoin at 43.50. That's up 2%. Ethereum Classic at $4, up 0.5%. Now, Fidelity, another big name in there. Also, TD Ameritrade. They are supposed to have this quarter cryptocurrency trading launched for institutions. Now, this is not subject to any regulation. This is just when they get ready to do it, because, as you know, we already have crypto trading in the United States. We have Coinbase. We have a number of cryptocurrency exchanges. The thing about Fidelity is it's a different audience. Now, initially, it will be an institutional audience only, but eventually you can see them moving that into the retail level. And Coinbase has had integration with Coinbase. Fidelity has integration with Coinbase for the last 2 years now, where you can add Coinbase to your Fidelity dashboard. Now, Fidelity has trillions and trillions under management, and if they can make it as simple as when you're buying your Apple stock, you can also add in Bitcoin or a Litecoin or Ethereum or whatever assets they're going to cover, that would be a very big deal, game changer, and so on. The other thing is, now you could say, well, Abra already does that, but very few people use Abra. I mean, Abra is not on everyone's wallet. The number of Fidelity accounts are in the tens of millions, and the amount of money under management is much bigger than whatever's on that Abra app. But the Abra app is very important because it shows how, like Robinhood, apps can get very quick adoption. And if you make it easy for people to use, they don't even have to know that they're using Bitcoin as a collateral. They're just buying stocks. So that's another thing that's going on with Fidelity. But Fidelity tweeted this. This is a retweet. This isn't them saying this. Some guy, I don't even know who he is. He said 98, Bob McGrath. I don't know who he is. Bob L. Rath. He was being interviewed and he just said, 99.58% of the world do not own cryptocurrencies yet. So you can see Fidelity looking at this as a big opportunity. And this was at a conference a week or so ago. But you could see Fidelity has its own screen name called Fidelity. It's called Digital Assets, but it's actually Fidelity Digital Assets. So they are preparing for their launch probably in the next 6 weeks. They have said they'll get it out this quarter. And finally, the Lightning Network. Now, Jack Dorsey. Many of you are not a fan of Jack Dorsey because he owns Twitter and the Twitter policies. But Jack also owns or operates a thing called Square and Cash. It's an app and has a big footprint. And you can buy Bitcoin through that app right now. And he was on an interview with, I think her name is Elizabeth Stark. I think it's Lightning Labs is the name of the company. They are the purveyors of or pushing the Lightning Network, providing the technology. And the Lightning Network is essentially a way of transacting Bitcoin off the chain and then recording after the transaction takes place back on the chain. What it's intended to do, instead of just making blocks bigger and then risking decentralization because only the largest miners could handle the biggest blocks, is you go about your business the way you are in the Lightning Network and then you record it later when the time is not of the essence. It still gets recorded, it's just not transacted that way. Now the Lightning Network, in this conversation that he had, some guy got a coup of an interview. He interviewed Jack and Elizabeth Stark, and they both participated in this torch where people are passing Satoshis around and increasing amounts on the Lightning Network, which I'm going to show you the numbers in a minute. And he said that it's only a matter of time until the Lightning Network comes to the Cash app or the Square product. And we've also seen another company called CoinGate, which uses exclusively the Lightning Network for both Bitcoin and Litecoin are both on the Lightning Network, although the Bitcoin Lightning Network is much more advanced. But again, if you're a merchant on that, you run the transactions through the Lightning Network and not directly on the Bitcoin chain. And let's just show you I think there's the same story. Yeah, it's just a duplicate there. Let's just show you the growth of the Lightning Network. There are 6,180 nodes. Litecoin only has 143, and that's because Litecoin currently only does about a tenth of the transactions that Bitcoin does. So Litecoin does not have a scaling issue right now. It's going to be a while for Litecoin to even have a scaling issue, but the Lightning Network is also being built out for Litecoin, but right now it's not that much built out. Now the channels, you can see for Bitcoin, 24,000 channels already. Litecoin got a decent 827 channels, but here's the capacity of the Lightning Network for Bitcoin is 660 Bitcoin, and that's about $2.5 million. Now the Litecoin is only at 100, and that's only a few $1,000s worth that you can now transact on the network at any one time. But it shows that progress is being made on both. All right, well, that's a quick update, and let's see what you guys are thinking. I'm going to give you, if anyone's got any pictures to send me with your mugs, with your dogs, with your cats, with yourself, please send them along, and we will get them shown quick, fast, and in a hurry. All right, but this, I'll leave you this. This is, I love to see this. When you go to the mailbox, nothing better than opening up and seeing worthless fiat currency, and the bonus that Mexican money was a real bonus. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it's always nice to have. All right, let's see what you guys are saying over in the comments. What are you saying over in the comments? Got the crowd here. Yeah, Carl Joseph DeMarco was looking to join us tonight, but he said that he was planning on being on at 7, or me being on at 7, and I tricked him. I came on at 8, so he had to go pick up his wife. All right. Pablo's here. Ann is here. Miser is here. The whole crowd is here. Where's Barry? I remember when first listening to Smaulgld, the gold-silver ratio was 72 and thinking we couldn't go much higher, but here we are. And you can go back 3 or 4 years ago. I used to do videos why the gold-silver ratio doesn't have to go to 16 to 1, why it can go higher. And it wasn't prediction. It was just the fact that people were convinced, still are, that the gold-silver ratio is unsustainable, 16. And they just throw out numbers and they just repeat themselves, that it should be 16 to 1 or 15 to 1. It comes out of the ground at 9 to 1. And I made the arguments that relative rarity doesn't determine value. I gave the platinum is 10 times rarer than gold. I gave the Smaulgld paintings only 2 compared to Picasso's thousands, and Picasso's are worth more. I gave the fixed bimetallism reason why the gold-silver ratio was what it was. But people don't want to hear that. They hear the experts tell you it's unsustainable. Yeah, it's been unsustainable for 55, 60 years. And I saw videos 2 or 3 years ago, smoking by, it's 62 to 1, it's never going to be this low. Sell all your gold, buy silver, game over, game changer. Silver is rarer than gold. All that nonsense. All right. Yeah, Mueller ignored trails that led to Dems. Of course he did. That wasn't the point of it wasn't to do what they should have done. They never should have had a special counsel. If they were concerned that there was Russian meddling in the U.S. elections, which there always is, and Chinese, they should have had a nonpartisan with no target. They shouldn't have been targeting the Trump campaign. They should have been doing an investigation, an intelligence probe into what happened. In fact, Obama said, you can't interfere with our elections. What does that even mean? And now they say, oh, yeah, of course you can. And the Russians do it all the time. And they did it through Trump. That's not the way the investigation was never about uncovering how to secure the election, how to make sure and understand what type of meddling can happen. It was all about getting Trump. That's obvious. Pablo says, I wonder if Trump will now counterattack. Well, we'll see what happens with the new Attorney General. The Attorney General William Barr has indicated that it looked like there was more reason to look into some of the things on the Clinton side than there was on the Trump side. And he did say that there looks like there's this double standard. And, I mean, the way they handled the Roger Stone, I don't think anybody, unless you're hyper-partisan, would think that's the right way to have 29 guys surrounding his house, frogmen out in the back of his house in the canal, banging the door down, helicopters, and have the CNN camera crew coordinating filming of it. There's something wrong with that. I mean, that appears to be not the proper way to handle a guy who might have lied to Congress. I mean, think of all the people who've lied to Congress. Are they raiding their houses? I don't think so. Where's Barry? I wouldn't discount Q. The counterattack has been ongoing. Yeah, but here's the thing about Q. Q's just made up. I could have said everything Q said. It's obvious. I mean, there's people who've written books that have been following what's going on. The Q thing is a hoax because, first of all, Q made this nonsense up that Sessions was part of the plan. It was this thing. No, it wasn't. They weren't acting out hate, not liking each other. Trump was generally frustrated that Sessions allowed this to go on. And here's the problem with it is there's no way that it made sense to allow a special counsel to be appointed and to have 40 to 60% of the American public be convinced for 2 years as a result of this that Trump is somehow connected to Russia. He allowed that to happen by allowing the special counsel to be appointed, doing nothing about it, and to show that Q was making it all up, they were saying, oh, Sessions isn't going to turn around and play Pac-Man. No, he's not. He got fired. So all the stuff that's going on has nothing to do with Q. I've pointed out 2 years ago, last year, that there's a lot of evidence that the stuff goes the other way. The question is whether Trump can withstand all this and actually have attorney generals on his side and to be able to go after some of the other things that have happened on the other side. But there's no way that this is some type of rope-a-dope that they planned in advance, that Sessions was hired to do nothing, and then all of a sudden to turn into some type of super prosecutor and go after everyone. In fact, what's happened with the Uber thing, the guy apparently hasn't even done much work. Now, all this stuff about sealed indictments, yeah, JP Morgan, Goldman, they all have billions of ounces of gold, and one day they're going to let it ride. I mean, these are all fantasy stories. There's enough in the facts to indicate that if Trump wanted to, he knows what happened. He knows about the FISA warrants. He knows about uranium. He knows everything. But he also knows that he can't just fire Mueller. What he could have done, had there not been a special counsel appointed and all this stuff, he could have gone after the leakers immediately. He could have demanded an investigation, or Sessions could have demanded an investigation to all this stuff. Hillary Clinton. Sessions refused to do that. That wasn't some type of part of the plan and trust the plan. In fact, one could argue that Q is I don't like to get into this conspiracy nonsense, but was a psyop to get the Trump supporters to not do anything and to be passive and say, oh no, yep, let's have another beating because eventually we're going to turn around and change all this, and allowed the Mueller probe to continue uninterrupted and allowed all this to happen. And of course, if you want to trash Trump and you want a free shot at him, you don't want anybody saying this is wrong and it needs to stop. You want them to say, no, it's part of the plan, you see, because Sessions is going to turn around. No, I don't think that had anything to do with it. That's too much risk, and it doesn't make any sense. When you're in power, you don't need to take a beating like that, because it was potential. I mean, the idea was that if they could really damage him politically, and they, in a way, they almost did. I mean, the midterm elections for the Congress could have been a disaster even more. It's only because Trump maintained some personal popularity, was able to get his senatorial candidates elected. But I don't think it makes any sense to think that Q was saying that Sessions is part of the plan. Now, that doesn't mean, and I've said this well before I even heard about Q, that there's plenty of evidence that they can go after Comey, McCabe, Strzok, all those people based on the evidence that they have. But it's got nothing to do with Q. Q is just, anyway, the people like to believe these things. Q my mom and gold back. Q my mom and gold back yuan. All right, let's see. Keisha Rhinestone, the stupid wall debate is like a game of rock, paper, and scissors. Walls closed, open spaces, tunnels. Yeah, it really is stupid because it is not about whether a wall works or not, because they already have walls at certain parts. And if walls are totally useless and make no sense whatsoever, just take them all down. It's obvious they don't solve all the problems. When people say, I prefer we use a technological solution. Okay, so you see people coming across the border, but what are you going to do at that point? A wall, I mean, it's obvious. And the reason I know it's obvious is if it wasn't Donald Trump, they would have built the walls already. A wall doesn't stop people from overstaying their visa. I understand that. A wall doesn't stop people that bring drugs through the ports of call, the ports of entry. But it does stop people who can do human trafficking or any other type of illegal entry. If it's easy to do it, they'll do it. They say, well, most of it comes, yeah, okay, so most of it comes through the ports of entry. That doesn't mean that there aren't others that don't go through where there isn't a barrier. I mean, it's the argument that you can leave your door open at night. Sure you can. And because they can kick it in, so you might as well just leave it open. That doesn't make any sense. The reason you lock your door is to make it harder. You don't just leave it open and say, well, come on in. And by the way, we're going to leave and just leave all the doors open. No, the idea is not about money. Well, we can spend that money somewhere else better. No, you can't. It's a rounding error, the amount of money that they're talking about. This whole thing is political. It's just so because Trump went around saying he wanted to build a wall, and they need to show politically they can stop him. But stop him for what purpose? Just because you're stopping him? And again, I think it's very stupid. If you want to be against Trump, the Russia collusion thing was a wrong play, and the wall thing is dumb too. It's not like, oh, we're saving the taxpayers' money. No, you're not. It's $5 billion. It's nothing. And you're much better off attacking your political adversary on things that matter, not just to beat him on anything. And I think that's going to be a big mistake, because eventually, as Trump says, they will build those walls, and it's hard to justify not having enhanced security. You could say, well, there's no crisis. Okay, if it stops 2 people, I mean, how much money are you talking about? All right. Michael Jackson, what do you think of the Superheart org buying? I don't know anything about this, so you'll have to give me some details. He's saying Superheart.org Foundation buying billion, trillion? I don't know what that is. Maybe God told Trump, if you build it, they will come. Okay. The wall is a concrete basis where Barry wouldn't be surprised if they had seismic sensors to detect any tunneling. Yes, that's another argument. Oh, well, they can tunnel under it. Well, yeah. I mean, no one is saying that it has to be impenetrable. It's supposed to stop what you can. And then obviously, it's not going to stop people flying over it. It's not going to stop people from coming in through the Atlantic coast, the Pacific coast, the Canadian. It's not intended to be the be-all and end-all for border security. But you can make, and it also depends on what type of fence you have. Now, if you're really serious about border security, and some people don't think there should be any borders, that's a different issue, is you don't do one or the other. You don't say, I'd rather use technology. You use technology and walls in conjunction. And that's the most secure. And you also tighten up the ports of entry. There's so much you can do. But just to say I'm going to do everything but the wall because I don't believe in the wall because Donald Trump wants the wall, that's pretty obvious. Okay, Keisha says, there's so many crypto copycats and so many new crypto copycats coming in the market that hyperinflation in the crypto market is inevitable. Not necessarily, because if they don't get traction, in other words, you can set up a coin right now. I can set up a coin. I can just pull out the white paper, and we can create a cryptocurrency. This is a false argument. It's one that Peter Schiff uses all the time, that anyone can just make them. You can't, because in order for a coin to be functional, it has to have an entire ecosystem. And if people don't rally around it, you don't get the miners, you don't get the people setting up nodes, you don't get people buying it, you don't get people trading it. It's useless. It doesn't add to it. It's just like you can issue more paper. It's not accepted. It's not used. And that's where people don't understand the advantage of Bitcoin. It's also the larger it is, the more secure it is, the longer it's around. It's not like, oh, we'll just add another 10 trillion Bitcoin and everything will work out, and see, it isn't really limited in scope. That's not true. Trump talks about dogs, about German Shepherds as are better than those $1 million machines detecting drugs. Yeah, I saw that last night, Pablo. He was talking about how, because you know the dog nose is amazing. I saw this one thing, I think the Russians were doing it, that they breed dogs even more to have hypersensitive noses. Yeah, he mentioned he didn't have a dog. He didn't want to be on the front lawn with it. I don't think he likes dogs. Maybe he does, but he doesn't have a dog. Let's see. He just says, oh my God, a Bitcoin ETF where the Bitcoins are offset with European bonds. That sounds like a losing proposition. European sovereign debt have negative interest rates on their bonds. And I think it sounds like more like a gimmick. It really does. But that may be one way of getting the Bitcoin ETF in there. All right. Let's see. Pablo, have you checked out Argentinian 1-year 100 bond, Keisha? Negative interest rates makes no sense. Why invest to lose money? Yeah, never figured that one out either. You guys are talking bonds here, and I think we're done. All right. Nope. Keisha's got another point. You're forgetting that tunnels bypass walls. The traffickers will just dig a tunnel under the wall to get across the border. But again, if you make it harder and somebody actually has to dig a tunnel, that doesn't mean you don't try to prevent the easiest. And also, you can't put a caravan through a tunnel. You can't amass 20,000 people because you'll see it. So tunnels, the harder you make it, the less likely things are to happen. See, these arguments, no one is saying that a wall is impenetrable and therefore, by the way, if you wanted to make it impenetrable, it wouldn't be $5 billion. Be a lot more than that. You can make it impenetrable, but remember what Trump was saying is he said he wants it to have a door and he wants people to come in and out. He's not trying to make a fortress. People are attacking the idea of a barrier as somehow, well, it's not an impenetrable fortress. Well, you don't want an impenetrable fortress. I think this is ridiculous. The only way it makes no sense is if you're for open borders. If you're for open borders and you don't want anything at the border, then I can see your argument is like, well, screw that. We don't want a wall. We don't even want a point of entry. Just let people come in and out. But once you decide you want to have borders, then you try to secure them. And you try to secure them in the best way. And no one's saying the wall is the best way. People are saying that are in favor a wall is one of the ways that you use in conjunction with everything else. It's common sense. People have politicized this thing to the point where it's wall bad because Trump bad. Okay, you can believe Trump is bad. That doesn't mean that a barrier is bad. Once you start saying things like walls are immoral, well, then don't have one around your house. Then I don't know. Walls destroy lives, all this stuff. All right, well, there we go. That's it for everyone. I really want to thank you for all your comments. I want to thank Keisha et al. And everyone who joined in this evening and who joins us each and every evening, because we do this every evening, usually around 7 o'clock, sometimes as late as 8 o'clock we start, and we do it 7 days a week. We haven't missed a day, I don't think. If I have, you have to remind me. We missed once when I did the David Morgan debate, which he called an interview. But otherwise, we are here every night around this time, so thank you very much, and good night. Don't forget the mugs. Smaulgld mugs are game changers. Oh, Lee said, what about Canada built along the border? If there's a need for, if there's a lot of crossings up there, then they would do that too. But right now, we're not having caravans starting up in Hudson Bay and walking down towards Michigan. If they did, then sure.